On this episode of the Red and Gold Report, we're going to be breaking down the Chiefs' win against Dallas. We're going to be looking at a few insights that you may have missed from the game, and we're going to be looking at the recent Chiefs news. So, what was the storyline of the game for the Chiefs on Sunday? Well, it was a little bit like what happens when I attempt to go for a jog. The Chiefs' offense started out quickly before coming to an early and painful halt. Mahomes and company scored on their first 3 straight drives, then they were stopped on the next 5 drives and only scored 3 points for the remainder of the game. In fact, they had scored 16 of their 19 points just 1 minute into the second quarter. But it didn't matter because the Cowboys' offense was as out of sync as a dubbed Kung Fu movie. With 3 key injuries on offense, with their coaching staff forgetting that it is legal to run the ball, with drop passes and mistimed penalties, and a Chiefs defense that really played well, the league's top offense, Dallas, looked like me on Monday mornings. Ugly. And of course, the storyline is not complete without saying that the Chiefs defense played excellent on Sunday, which we're going to talk more about in a few minutes. So with the storyline down, who was the MVP of the game? Well, of course, it was Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones. Jones finished the game with 4 sacks, the most by a Chiefs defender since 2016. Now, I know the stat line said he had 3.5 sacks, but I counted 4, and I trust my counting skills, at least up to the number 10. In addition to the 4 sacks, Jones had 3 quarterback hurries, a forced fumble recovery, and a deflected ball that became an interception to seal the game in the fourth quarter. He was absolutely dominant on Sunday. He returned to that all-pro defensive tackle that we all knew he has been. As I keep saying, adding Melvin Ingram at the trade deadline was huge, not just because of Ingram, but because it allowed Chris Jones to return to defensive tackle, where he is phenomenal. So Chris Jones, definitely the MVP of the game. Who else played well for the Chiefs on Sunday? Well, Tyreek Hill led the team in receptions and receiving yards, and he had a great 33-yard run on an end around. Nick Bolton was the bright spot for the Chiefs linebackers, including a great tackle for loss, chasing down the running back from the backside on the second drive. Backup tight end Blake Bell played well as a blocker. You know, I think he's being overlooked because he isn't a great receiving threat, but he is grading as a top 10 blocking tight end in the league, according to PFF, and that was evidenced on Sunday by a great block that he threw that helped spring Tyreek Hill on that long run in the first drive. And hey, I know that I've really given Frank Clark a hard time this season, and I know he's really deserved it. He's played awful at times, but he played well against the Cowboys. He had a sack and a strip fumble, and I counted at least 3 more pressures. So I guess he turned his off switch back on this week. Coroner Rashad Fitton played well, including forcing a drop pass to send the Cowboys into a 3-and-out on their opening drive. Also, corner L'Jarius Sneed had a good game. He had a tackle behind the line of scrimmage on a wide receiver screen. He had 3 passes defended, including one he broke up on a deep pass that could have been a touchdown in the second quarter, and he had an interception that clinched the game right at the end. Travis Kelce got rolling late in the game, but he had a great game with 74 yards in the air and a 4-yard rushing touchdown on the first drive on a direct snap. Also, you should know that Kelce moved into 5th place in all-time receiving yards by a tight end in the NFL. Byron Pringle had a good week with a 37-yard reception and 3 good kick returns, averaging 35 yards. But more on him later. And of course, we got to mention the defense as a unit. Yes, the Cowboys offense was without 3 starters, but hey, you know what? They entered the game as the top offense in the entire league. So to hold them just to 3 field goals, well, that was an amazing day. And it was all made possible by a good pass rush, which we've been missing this season, and good cornerback play by the Chiefs. So good job, defense. So that's who played well, but who had some poor games on Sunday? Well, unfortunately, the offensive line actually struggled after having played well over the last few weeks. Mahomes was under pressure 49% of his dropbacks. That's the 3rd most in his career. The line allowed 3 sacks and 10 hurries on the day, though backup right tackle Andrew Wiley gave up 7 of those pressures all on his own, including an ugly block that resulted in a strip sack in the second quarter. But we also need to mention right guard Trey Smith, who I've been high on all season. He's playing great, but not on Sunday. He had 3 penalties in the first half alone, including a succession of 2 penalties that put the Chiefs in a 2nd and 29 situation that blew up a drive because he lost his composure. Left tackle Orlando Brown had an off game as well. He's been improving throughout the season, but he has a massive frame, and he just wasn't quite quick enough to keep up with Cowboys rookie speed rusher Micah Parsons. Kicker Harrison Butker struggled as he missed an extra point, then also a long field goal in the 4th quarter. I know he had that cool little pooch kick thing, but he needs to be making those field goals. And the referees had an awful day. Did you notice this? They missed a late hit on Mahomes. Made me so mad. They also had a call overturned by New York in a weird play and missed a handful of calls that actually went in the Chiefs' favor. I'm not complaining about those. I'm really not. Thank you, refs. But they stank it up on Sunday. And that taunting penalty on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all he did was point at the player. Like, is there anyone other than a few old stooge owners in the league that actually wants all of these ridiculous taunting penalties this year? I mean, at this rate, by next year, when an offensive player scores, he's probably going to need to be required to volunteer to be the defensive player's emotional support animal after every touchdown. I mean, it's out of hand. The refs stank it up in the game, and they got to get rid of these taunting penalties. But with those positive and negative outings in mind, let's turn to a few insights that you may have missed during the game. First insight, nobody seems to be noticing how good Byron Pringle is playing and how really he should clearly be elevated over Mecole Hardman on the depth chart. Now, if you take a casual look at the season's stats, you might point out that Hardman has more receiving yards, so he should be starting. But you'd be wrong. Taking a deeper dive, we find that Pringle is playing much, much better. While Hardman has been targeted 59 times, Pringle has only been targeted 32 times, nearly half as many. But Pringle does way more with every target. Pringle has a better catch rate than Hardman, while Hardman keeps dropping passes, just like the drop pass he had going over the middle on the opening drive on Sunday. And Pringle has an average of 14.7 yards per catch, which actually leads the Chiefs. Hardman is only averaging 10.1 yards per catch. And while only receiving half of the targets of Hardman, Pringle has twice as many receptions over 20 yards, with 8 to 4 on deep catches, like the 37-yarder he had on Sunday, which was kind of silky smooth. Going into the game, Byron Pringle provided a QB rating of 138.3 when he was targeted, while only playing 39% of the offensive snaps. Have I convinced you yet? Pringle needs to be the starter. Second insight is how the Chiefs' offense is struggling when they become predictable. And by predictable, I mean that they're refusing to run the ball at times, which is why the offense sputtered out in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th quarters. The team came out of the gate wanting to establish the run. The first drive of the game had 9 plays, 4 rushes, 4 passes, and 1 quarterback scramble. It ended in a touchdown. They looked amazing. And with those runs as a threat, the offense scored 16 of its 19 points in the first half. If you take away the scrambles by Mahomes, the Chiefs ran only 19 times against Dallas. But of those 19 called run attempts, 6 came on the final drive that was really becoming cleanup time at the end of the game. So not including the first and last drives of the game or the scrambles by Mahomes, we only had 9 designed run plays. 9. Maybe that's why the offense really stalled out for 3/4 of the game. It's pretty predictable if you're just not running the ball. Another interesting insight to notice, with the pressure coming from the Dallas defensive line, Mahomes averaged just 5.4 air yards per attempt, which is the 2nd lowest average of his career in games where he had at least 15 passes. But you know what? Don't take this as just a negative, because it also means that Mahomes was taking the underneath options that the defense was giving him instead of forcing it like he did early in the season, and so he was able to eke out the win even with those short passes. Another insight to take away from the game is that I think we're about 1 game away from Josh Gordon not really seeing the field much anymore. The former All-Pro had been out of the league for a few years with off-field issues when the Chiefs took a risk on him. Sunday, Gordon dropped another pass in the 3rd quarter. He's been targeted 6 times in 7 games with only 2 catches for only 18 yards. So if he doesn't turn it on in the next game, well, I really wouldn't be surprised if we're just that one more experiment away from Josh Gordon being replaced by Fountain or Kim. And also another insight you may have missed, the team apparently is unaware that cornerback Rashad Fitton is having a fantastic season. Fitton is still listed as a backup for the team on the website and is for some reason still playing special teams, which I really don't like. Meanwhile, PFF has him grading as the second best cornerback in the entire NFL and is definitely the best coverage player on the entire team for the Chiefs. He's even tied with Tyrann Mathieu for the most passes defended on the team, even though he's played in 1/3 less coverage snaps. So get your mind around this. The best graded corner in the NFL, not named Jalen Ramsey, is still a backup who plays special teams for the Chiefs. It's concerning that the coaches haven't identified this, and actually it's also concerning that Fitton was injured in the fourth quarter on a really awkward tackle. I'm hoping that he's okay because he actually is the Chiefs' best coverage player this year. So with the Dallas game out of the way, let's talk recent Chiefs news. The big news this week is that starting running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire returned to the lineup after being on injured reserve. He actually looked improved versus Dallas in comparison with those early games this season where he tended to struggle. And in other news, just in case anybody with the Chiefs is watching this, former Chiefs All-Pro right tackle Mitchell Schwartz, he's still a free agent, and the Chiefs are starting a third-string right tackle, so you could sign him now. And in other news, if you are ever wondering why you should not get your Chiefs news from national sports media, right now you can read the recent article about the Chiefs win on NFL.com, which they cite Chris Jones' move to defensive end as the reason for the defense's improvements. I mean, like, you can't make this stuff up. The guy who wrote the article didn't even watch the game. Jones was playing defensive tackle nearly the entire game on Sunday. I think it just should be a rule that if you're writing an article about a game or making a video, maybe you should watch the game first. Maybe I'm crazy. And in other Chiefs news, the team is heading into their bye week. Yep, no game this weekend, and then the Chiefies are going to be taking on the hapless Broncos after that. And my big hope for this bye week is that right tackle Lucas Niang could get healthy during this week off. We really need him. That could shore up the offensive line. And big news, Chiefs are on a 4-game winning streak. Yep, they're up to 7-4, and they're sitting on top of the AFC West where they belong. Order has been restored to the chaos of the universe. That'll do it for the Red and Gold Report this week. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe and follow and all the other buttons on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and go Chiefs!